Bearcat Blitz firing up our show to close out May of 2025. I'm your host, Russ Heltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. He's my co host, Neil Meyer from the frontofficenews.com Rivals Cincinnati coverage site. We had some basketball roster numbers surface courtesy of a Instagram post by Jalen Haynes this week. Neil met Jalen Haynes. We'll get that kind of inside story from his run-in with Haynes. Did not It wasn't a secret setup meeting or anything. This was just happenstance out in public. So Neil is all good. There's no rule breaking there for people worried about all that. And then JuCo guard offering as well. Cincinnati interested in a JuCo guard that could be a part of the roster in 2025-26 if he picks Cincinnati. Plus, we'll take a break after that and we'll get to our most anticipated football game of the 2025 Bearcat season, a season where Cincinnati has a pretty generous strength of schedule to work with here. But there are a few really tough games, and one of them in particular sticks out to me. And I think if they win this one, there should be no excuse, no reason why they won't be bowling if they get this victory on the board at some point in the 2025 season. We'll get to all that and more on this Bearcat Blitz after these messages on the Believe Network. Stick with us. Neil, we have roster numbers for a few players on the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team. They have not been officially released, but looks like they are up in the Bearcats locker room. And Jalen Haynes posted on Instagram this week that he will be wearing number 3 this season. Jalen Celestine in the picture as well, wearing number 32. And then you can see in the reflection, just in the corner there on the left side, that Mustafa Tiem will be rocking number 52 for the Bearcats. Just some fun, off-season stuff. Cool to see the names already being ingrained in the locker room, and looks like Jalen Haynes, everybody getting in town and getting ready to start working out together and building that all-important chemistry this summer and beyond.
Yeah, and it's important to note too, Russ, like we mentioned earlier in the week, that it seems about just about every player on this roster has arrived in town for
Yeah.
Cincinnati, despite any late additions here in the 2026 class. Seems like just about everybody is in town. We have seen posts from Sean Abayev that he has arrived in Cincinnati, Jalen Haynes, Jalen Celestine. Most of these guys are here in town, Sincere Harris as well. Kirk Carissa. It's going to be interesting to see what some of these numbers come out, but it's going to be a different year, Russ. I know in years past, we were able to kind of look ahead at this point and say, okay, we know what number so and so is going to be because of years past. This year, I don't think you have that. You have Day Thomas is 0, Jizzle James is 1, and outside of that, everybody else is going to be rocking a new number potentially or a number in the past, like Calvin Zealot, who wore 65. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of numbers appear for the Cincinnati men's roster team this year.
That it will be. And we have a potential another addition to the roster that will be needing a number if he ends up picking the Bearcats. That is Citrus Community College guard KJ Perry. Neil, this was definitely the most interesting kind of news nugget that came out over the past week. Is Cincinnati has offered the guard out of Citrus Community College, shot 50% last season at 6'3", 17 and a half points per game, is a nice bucket getter. Maybe another kind of version of Day Thomas, who a guy similar size, similar position that comes from the community college ranks and really thrives with Cincinnati. Day Thomas, obviously one of the most important Bearcats on the roster this coming season, and was the most consistent shooter on the roster in the 2024-25 season. So this could be a similar kind of baton passing if KJ Perry ends up taking the offer from Cincinnati. He's also receiving interest from Kansas, San Diego, Washington State, has received offers from TCU, Cal, Fresno State, and Arizona State. So Cincinnati right in the mix right there. This is an intriguing talent, and another way I think to smartly bring a guy with high level competitive experience to the team, but not necessarily, if he does pick Cincinnati, going to be anticipating being a 30-minute per game guy or a 25-minute per game guy. You onboard him well into the roster. And once Day Thomas leaves after this season, if he does end up leaving, because he does, I believe, have technically 2 years of eligibility left given the community college and JuCo rulings that are still pending in court right now. So if Day Thomas ends up leaving and Jizzle James ends up leaving, going on to, and pursuing a NBA draft future, if he ends up playing to that level, then it could be a wide open spot for KJ Perry. Interesting JuCo offer over the past week.
Yeah, interesting to say the least, Russ, because we're kind of in the same situation that they were with Day Thomas just a few years ago, right? I mean, you look back and Day Thomas also came from the JuCo routes. It could be a potential big time ad for Cincinnati if KJ Perry elects to come to Cincinnati. Now it's going to be interesting to see because you mentioned the list of names that he is receiving offers from. Majority of them being Big 12 schools in Arizona State. Kansas is interested. TCU, Kansas or Arizona State and TCU both desperately need point guards right away. Maybe those two schools offer something Cincinnati can't, and that's playing time right away. However, like you mentioned, he is a bigger guard, a 6'3", can score in a flurry, average nearly 18 points a game, shot nearly 50% from the field. It could be interesting to see what might happen here with this development. Now, KJ Perry does come to Cincinnati. It's going to be interesting because you look at Cincinnati's backcourt as it stands right now. Day Thomas is a potential senior, pending the JuCo and the NCAA injunction rules. Jizzle James could potentially go off to the NBA if he has a big junior season. Kirk Caruso will have no eligibility left after this season.
Right.
Jalen Celestine will have no eligibility left after this season. It's going to be interesting to see what might come out of this because the only true point guard on the roster right now with eligibility that we for sure know about following the 2025-2026 season will be A, Keyshawn Tillery, and B, potentially Jizzle James if he elects to stay for his senior season. So this could be one of those big time additions that could be sneaky, considering that if he did elect to come to Cincinnati, he would still have 4 years of eligibility left as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what date did Day Thomas end up committing when he ended up coming to Cincinnati. I can't quite remember, but great point, Neil, and great to lay out, kind of take the baton from me, so to speak, and go through how it could be a nice bridge opportunity for Perry to be in a high major system. You get experience in that system to start. You're not under any pressure to really perform at a high level like you may be at some of these other schools, and then you can really thrive in your second year at Cincinnati. And a guy, Neil, who I believe has all 4 years of eligibility left because he just played his freshman season at the JuCo level. And if you play at the JuCo level for 1 year or 2 years, you get to retain, as of the current rules right now, thanks to Diego Pavia, you get to retain that eligibility, right? Are we on the same page there?
No, that is correct.
Yep.
Thanks to Diego Pavia for making that statement there. It's kind of allowed the JuCo athletes to take the next level, right? And
Yeah.
try to find ways and build their ways. But overall, it could be interesting. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's played into the beneficiary of Day Thomas right now. Might as well do the same thing for KJ Perry as long as this case keeps going in court. It's going to be interesting to see what this injunction and this ruling might be. But as of right now, he still has 4 years of eligibility remaining at the Division One level.
Shout out Diego Pavia for that because that means we get to cover Day Thomas a little bit more. And who doesn't love hearing the Day Thomas southern accent? It's one of my favorite things covering Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. He's got a great voice and a great thing that he is back with the roster and a veteran presence at that. That ties things up on our basketball side of things. We'll get to the football portion of the program after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, touching on the gridiron here across this latest episode of Bearcat Blitz. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. He's my co-host, Neil Meyer from the front office news.com, and posed a question to Neil. Asked him what his most anticipated football game of the 2025 season is. We'll get to that, but real quick, I've been kind of canvassing, trying to find strength of schedule rankings. This early in the calendar, it's a little difficult. A lot of the analytic services are not out yet. They have not spit out their projections for the 2025 season, but I did see College Football News did their own ranking of strength of schedules. And Neil, they had the Cincinnati Bearcats 14th among all 16 Big 12 teams in terms of the 14th hardest schedule in the Big 12 this fall. And that checks out to me with Utah, TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Nebraska ranked as their most difficult games this coming season. It's once again, Neil, going to be a slate where prior to kickoff of week one, Cincinnati's going to be expected to win at least six, if not 8 to 9 of these games with how easy it is compared to the rest of the power conference outfits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing to note on that front too, Russ, is heading into the season, you look down at the schedule and most teams are expecting you to go bowling. Most analysts are expecting you to go bowling due to the strength of schedule. But most importantly, I think the biggest thing for Cincinnati to do in order to get to a bowl game and take that next step under Scott Satterfield is take care of home field advantage, right? You look down, this is something they haven't had in a while, and that is 7 home games when you're looking at this schedule. Now, there's a lot of big ones. You mentioned Iowa State, you mentioned Nebraska on the road to kick off the season, UCF back at home, you have Baylor, you have Utah on the road, Arizona. BYU was really good last year, TCU. I feel like this could be an opportunity for Cincinnati to showcase what they are built to be in within this Big 12 conference. But you look down, if you take care of business in the non-conference slate, I know we have been here years past, it feels like, but if you take care of business in non-conference slate, there's no reason Cincinnati shouldn't go bowling with this kind of schedule here heading into 2025.
Right. And you look at the early portion of the season, you get the majority of your early games are your easiest games. Easiest, obviously, is Northwestern State. Second easiest, Bowling Green. I would agree with College Football News that they are tabbing the UCF game as the third easiest on the schedule, and that's at home as well. And then you get Arizona at home, another easy game before you
Oklahoma
move.
State as well, also on the road, and they struggled mightily last year.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can bounce back a little bit. But we'll get to maybe one of those games right now. Neil, I'll leave the floor to you. I have my pick for the most anticipated game on the schedule for me this coming fall. What do you have as your most anticipated UC football game in 2025?
Yeah, I think we're probably both going to pick the same game here, Russ. And I think it starts week one versus Nebraska out in Kansas City. I
All
think
right.
that game really solidifies and could set the tone for Scott
Took
Satterfield
the
and
words right out of my mouth. I was just thinking set the tone right in my head.
and I think if you come out there and you set the tone right away and you get a big win over Dylan Raiola, Matt Rule in Nebraska, it could be trending things in the right direction. However, it's never easy playing on a neutral site in an NFL stadium. And what is that, Russ? Technically week zero, right? Because that is a
I
week
think it
zero.
is. I think it is week one technically still.
Or, okay, so Thursday before week one.
Yeah.
But still, it's not going to be an easy challenge. And I think, first of all, it's nice to see that they have the support, right? Those who have listened to the New Heights podcast, it sounds like Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey have been kind of teasing that they will be in attendance for this one. So that will be huge to kind of see those guys in attendance. I'm sure we'll see Brian Cook in attendance as well as he's out there in Kansas City playing for the Chiefs. So could be a lot of notable Bearcat alumni in the building for this one. But the biggest thing for me, Russ, too, is you look down at what happened last year versus Nebraska in the Big 12 play to kick it off, right? Versus Colorado. I can't remember if Colorado pulled away from that game, but it was a back and forth battle from the jump, and that kind of set the tone for Colorado last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
You're
if
talking about
Cincinnati,
Colorado's game against Nebraska to start the
yes,
season last year. Okay. Yeah.
yes, and if Cincinnati can go out to Arrowhead and get a win and kind of sets your tone. Now you have to get a good showing. Obviously, the defense, we're still kind of trying to figure out what that might look like with a lot of new faces, but the offense has just about every opportunity to go out there and put up some points, I feel like. And Nebraska struggled towards the back half of the season. It's going to be interesting to see what Dylan Raiola does in year two, but I think it's safe to say, Russ, that Dylan Raiola might be the best quarterback that Cincinnati faces this season, outside of maybe Rocco Becht from Iowa State. Looking down at this, Noah Fifita can't stay healthy. Out at Arizona, you have
Who was that? Jaden Daniels at Kansas. If he stays healthy,
Jalen
I'd probably
Daniels.
put him tops
Yeah,
of the group.
Jalen Daniels, but he hasn't practiced. He didn't practice all spring, so it's going to be interesting to
There
see
you go. That's
what.
the healthy caveat right there is needed.
And then Jake Ratzliff has that situation going on at BYU, so I mean that could play in as a distraction. So overall, I think it's safe to say that week one might be the best quarterback they've seen
Yeah.
throughout the whole 2025 season in Dylan Raiola. And if Cincinnati can find ways to get a couple takeaways off of Raiola, I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for them. And not only that, but huge opportunity. You get a prime time slot. I'm still not a fan of the time, uh, especially here in Cincinnati at 9 p.m. kickoff time. For those who work on Fridays, that time slot does suck. But for us who have to cover it, it's an 8 p.m. kickoff out there in Kansas City. But man, I'm excited for it, Russ. I'm excited. Now, on top of it, you have just about 2 weeks away from the ribbon cutting at the new indoor practice facility. There is going to be a lot of momentum and a lot of steam heading into Nebraska here in just about 3 short months.
Good pick, Neil. It is not my pick for the most anticipated game, though. I'm going with at the Utah Utes on November 1st. A cold trip out west into the mountains, a true test of this program standing in the Big 12 in year three of Scott Satterfield. They could be already at 6 wins by this point in the calendar. They could be building momentum towards a possible late run at the Big 12 championship game at this point with how easy this schedule could be in 2025. If they start off on the right foot against Nebraska, they should go undefeated in the non-conference slate, and then you get a multiple easy games at home to start off your season. They could have 5 wins by the time we hit the middle of October. By the time we hit November 1st, they could already be at 6 wins, or they could be still searching for that 6th win right around that time. Either way, I think it's going to be a huge inflection point of where the program is at and what kind of ceiling they can hit in the 2025 ceiling or 2025 season with this performance, how they perform against the Utah Utes on November 1st. I believe it's the first time. It's definitely the first time they traveled to Utah as Big 12 members. I don't know if they've ever played at Utah. And Neil, we know at Eccles Stadium, it is a brutal place to play. I think it could very well be a night game, and it's just going to test where this team and this program truly is at up against a program in Utah that's been entrenched and labeled with a true identity by Kyle Whittingham for multiple decades now. So Utah gets the cake, gets the cream of the crop pick for me, though. But Nebraska would have been my second pick to start the season. Obviously, a lot of anticipation there as well. So you got one at the beginning of the season, one right near the end of the season as picks for most anticipated outings for the Cincinnati Bearcats this coming fall. I cannot wait for football season. Can't wait to get the fellas out there at Camp Higher Ground, and can't wait, as Neil mentioned, in a couple weeks to be fully refreshed in my return from Alaska and checking out that new IPF right there in the heart of Cincinnati's campus. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. Neil's got the reins of the show next week. I will be out on assignment. I'm not on assignment, on vacation out in Alaska. Very excited for that. And then I'll be back the following week to discuss the IPF opening and more as we work through the heart of the offseason here for Cincinnati Bearcats football and basketball on Bearcat Blitz. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.